في أكبر الكتب.
Congratulations, you have found the Lambcast, the official podcast of the large association of movie blogs, also known as the Lamb. The Lamb is the largest collective of online movie blogs and podcasts with 2,000 members and counting. Every week on the Lambcast, various members of the Lamb community get together to talk about our favorite subject, movies. So bookmark the Lamb and follow us on social media. Be sure to join us each week to hear a lively discussion of films and movie-related talk from our members. Join the flock at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Greetings from the past, all of you fans of the Lamb. This is episode 819 of the Lambcast, and I'm your host, Richard Kirkham, from Kirkham A Movie A Day. In 1977, Jimmy Carter is sworn in as the 39th President of the United States. The American Space Shuttle program gets launched off the ground with the first test flight of the Space Shuttle Enterprise. We have the Tenerife disaster, which was a collision between a KLM plane and a Pan Am Boeing 747 on the ground that crashed into each other, killing 583 people and becoming the deadliest accident in aviation history prior to the 9/11 terrorist attacks. A temperature of 48 degrees centigrade, that's 118 degrees Fahrenheit for you Americans, a record for continental Europe, is recorded in Greece. Sadly, 3 members of the rock band Lynyrd Skynyrd died in a charter plane crash outside of Galesburg, Mississippi. The last natural smallpox case was discovered in Somalia, and WHO and CDC consider this the anniversary of the eradication of smallpox. Interpol first issues a resolution against the copyright infringement of videotapes and other materials, which is still cited in warnings on the opening pre-credits of videocassettes and DVDs. And Star Wars was released in the United States from director George Lucas. It immediately became a major pop culture phenomena and a major box office hit. In 1977, we added the following people to our list of stars: Tom Hardy, Orlando Bloom, Samantha Morton, and Colin Hanks. And several of our movie stars exited the stage, including Elvis, Groucho Marx, Bing Crosby, Gene Hagen, and Charlie Chaplin. As they say, it was a monumental year. Well, we're going to take a thumbnail look at the films of 1977, and our guests this week have assembled a list of 5 films from the year that they want to share. They may have a theme or they may be random. Let's see what our random set of guests is first. Dave Anderson, welcome back to the show. How are all the free kittens doing this week?
They're doing wonderful, but I do need to change their box.
That was one of the problems when I had cats. It was always cat box changing week, and I had to remind my daughter when it became her job to do it. And at one point, she was posting on it, and she says she had to change the letterbox. And I said, nope, that's the wrong one.
Unfortunately, they're my cats, so the box is in my room, so it's my job.
Your job, I understand. Todd Liebenow, how is the cartoon breakdown going?
Very well. Well, yeah, we'll talk about that in the plugs, but yeah, excited about the new show. Absolutely.
Excellent. Good deal. Howard Casner is back for at least the 3rd week in a row. Hopefully he's not too worn out from participating in the Lambcast. Thanks for joining us, Howard.
Oh, never too tired to join the Lambcast.
I like that answer. That's excellent. And David Brook is joining us from across the sea in Great Britain. Glad to have you, David. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. Yes, it's always a pleasure to be on this show. I've been taking a bit of a sidestep from things recently, but I can never resist the decade look back. So I'm back.
Well, I'm glad. This has been a popular feature since we put it into play. Usually I have a lot of people who are lined up for it. This week I thought, I only had 2 people on the show. And apparently there were 2 of you that were scheduled that I had left off of my schedule. So I'm glad that we figured that out, added you back in, and we have a full show this week. Like I said, everybody's got 5 films that they're going to talk about from 1977, and I say it's 1977. David, of course, is living in Great Britain where the release dates are sometimes a little bit different. So we may end up with a 76 film or a 78 film. I'm not sure how it all works out. That's too much complication for me to figure out the time scale. But we'll let it slide, whatever he comes up with. Uh, if you have a method in your madness, a reason why you picked the films that you picked, you're more than welcome to share that at the beginning. But we're going to go ahead and get started, and we do a round robin here. Dave Anderson, I'm going to ask you to go first. What's the first film from 1977 that you brought for us to talk about this week?
Okay. Well, I chose my list based on a couple of criteria. First, 77 was a great year to be a teenage movie fan. And a lot of classics were released that year, and some of them are still among my all-time favorites. And I'm not going to talk about any of those. Instead, my list consists of films that have been comparatively forgotten over time, and often for good reason. But they still, they're still a lot of fun, and I suppose I would call them guilty pleasures. And since I'm old enough to have seen all of these in theaters when they were first released, my love for them is partially driven by, no small amount of nostalgia. And I still enjoy revisiting them on occasion, 50 years later, or 49. And the first one on my list is Airport 77.
Oh, yeah.
I should have guessed that you'd have an airport film on here.
Oh, yeah. I've always loved disaster films, especially those from the 70s. This one came out just as the genre's popularity was starting to decline. And there were 4 films in the Airport franchise. In my opinion, Airport 77 is the best of them. It's still pretty silly at times, but it has a better story than the other airport movies, in my opinion. And it's certainly the most focused on the disaster itself, with fewer subplots than the others. It also has the best special effects, which were rendered almost immediately antiquated once Star Wars came out, but it's still fun watching that plane go down. And I don't know, maybe it's how I'm wired, but the older I get, the more I really enjoy revisiting these films and the old way special effects were done. It just seems like a lot more effort was put into them. This one also has the best cast, including a few Oscar winners. Jack Lemmon, Lee Grant, Olivia de Havilland, Jimmy Stewart, Christopher Lee, and of course George Kennedy, whose character was the only link between all 4 films. The plot of this one is hijackers take over a billionaire's private 747 to steal his art collection. And while descending the plane to avoid radar detection, they strike an oil derrick and crash land in the Bermuda Triangle. And then the plane sinks beneath the surface. And the rest of the movie has the captain and passengers trying to stay alive while water pressure threatens to crush the plane. I remember when the Bermuda Triangle was a big deal. When I was a kid in the 70s, it was a mysterious place where planes and ships routinely disappeared, and there were lots of books and movies about it. So it was an intriguing and scary concept for me, kind of like the killer bees that were supposed to be coming up and killing us at the same time. And Airport 77's ad campaign played that up, but the Bermuda Triangle itself doesn't really figure into the plot that much. It's not a great film, but it's a good, solid disaster movie. It doesn't take any real unexpected turns. It was a lot of fun on the big screen, and you haven't lived until you've seen Lee Grant chew up the scenery in that one.
Yeah,
I think I watched it a year ago. But trying to catch up because I don't think I had seen all of the airport films. And I remember enjoying it.
Oh, they're all fun. We did a notorious episode of the Lambcast many years ago where we did a franchise look back on the airport series. Will Sloan, or not Will, what am I? Will Slater from Exploding Helicopter put that forward, and pretty much all of us on there hadn't seen any of these films before, and we just fell in love with them. We thought they were fantastic. So. Yeah, and 77 is a lot of fun. It is, one of the most ridiculous in a series that has a lot of ridiculousness to it. It does get pretty nutty, but it's well done. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, it's the high and the mighty compared to Airport 79.
Well, I mean, 79 has its own charms. I mean, there's a scene where they open up the window in the cockpit of the Concorde, that I'm like, really? I think Alan Delon would have been sucked out by now, but whatever.
Oh my goodness. Well, I've got that to look forward to. I haven't seen that one. So,
Oh, you've got to. It's in there's parts where it's just as funny as Airplane, and not on purpose.
well, Todd, I was expecting forgotten films from you. Has David stolen your thunder?
No, no. I mean, I just decided to go with whatever I felt like talking about again. I like looking at the forgotten stuff, but I was just kind of looking through the list and going, well, what do I want to talk about? I can't call that film forgotten. But, that's okay. So yeah, mine is kind of random. It might even change as we go here, depending on what other people talk about. But for my first one, I'm going to go with a film that some people might call a guilty pleasure, but I mean, when I sit down and watch this thing, I say, no, that's a legit good film. That it's goofy, but it's good and a lot of fun. Everybody remembers the number one movie at the box office was Star Wars in '77, but what was number two? Smokey and the
Smokey and the
Bandit.
Bandit. There you go.
I just can't resist Smokey and the Bandit. It is just a fun movie, and I think very funny. I think one of the things that makes this movie so wonderful. I mean, yes, it's a stunt movie. You've got Hal Needham directing it and all that. Not a guy that you think of when it comes to characters, but I think there are some really fun characters in this, and at the heart of that, just amazing chemistry between Burt Reynolds and Sally Field. I mean, they were a legit item at the time that this was made. And there's no denying that these two have great comedic chemistry, great sexual chemistry. It's just a wonderful dynamic between the two. And then Jackie Gleason, I mean, this is one of those performances that I look at and go, oh, if only they honored comedy performances the way they should. This is just a fantastic comedic performance. And there's just lots of other fun things with this, lots of great car chases, great stunts. I love the song Eastbound and Down, Jerry Reed and the dog, just wonderful as well. So, yeah, I mean, I admit the series went very much downhill. You'd have to, give me a pretty sweet deal to get me to sit down to Smokey and the Bandit 2 right now. But the first Smokey and the Bandit, I just think is a joy to behold.
Yeah, it's a film I haven't seen it for a long time, but when I was a kid, it was on TV a lot, and I adored it. Anything with kind of cars and stunts and stuff, I was there, and that was always one of my favorites. So now I'm with you on this one, but I do need to revisit it. It's been way too long.
Well, the premise of transporting Coors beer from one state to another, of course, is kind of out of date because I think they're now available everywhere. But it's kind of funny that you mentioned it because the wedding that I went to a week and a half ago up in Indiana, and I drove to it from here in Texas, visiting with my friends a little bit before the wedding. 2 days before the wedding, before I was supposed to leave, my friend called me. It was his daughter getting married, and so he was putting together the reception. And he said, "There's a beer that's not available here in Indiana. I've ordered several cases. Can you pick them up there in Austin and drive them up to me?" And I said, "Sure, I'll play Smokey."
Well, I mean, just that whole idea behind this, like you said, it's very out of date now, but it almost gives the film kind of this fantasy element when you watch it now, because it just seems like this completely foreign concept. And I gotta admit to, I mean, I'm not a beer drinker, but it always, I don't know, makes me a little bit happy that because of that Colorado connection of Coors beer, it's a big
Rocky
deal
Mountain
out
spring
here.
water.
Yeah, but anyway.
You say you're not a beer drinker. I don't imbibe of at all. And I went to the Paramount, I don't know, a year ago by myself, and they had a, non-alcoholic beer, and I said, "Well, I'll try that and see how that is," and because it always looks so great when people have a beer and it's cold and frothy, and you look at that and you say, "That's so appealing." And I took one sip of that and said, "Yeah, there's a reason I don't drink.
Yeah.
This sucks."
The same way.
Well, Howard, you usually do what you think are the best films of the year. Is that what you're following through on this year or this episode?
Oh yeah, you know, same old, same old. What can I
Nothing wrong
do?
with being consistent. That's a good way to be sometimes.
Well,
So what do you, are you counting them down?
no, yeah, number five up to number one, the best. So number
No
five,
problem. Great.
um, is is a film that's a little difficult to describe. It is one of the greatest WTF films of all the time. It is a debut film, the person feature film person made, and it is Eraserhead.
Yeah.
Hey.
Which of course was done by David Lynch. Tells the story of a man who has to care for his odd, I guess, grossly deformed child in this weird, desolate industrial landscape. When I first saw it, I was just fascinated. I thought this was something really fantastic. Years later, I showed it to a friend and he had me turn it off because he found it either too disturbing or too real. I don't know which it is, but I think it's one of David Lynch's best. And yeah, so that's my first one.
I've heard
Yeah,
it described as the most successful student film of all time.
The
Yeah.
good description.
I suppose. I mean, he started it in school, but then until Sissy Spacek came along and gave him some money, he couldn't finish it for a number of years. Yeah, I think it's probably better than THX 1138.
Yeah. Definitely. It's one. It's one.
1138.
Go
Yeah, I was
ahead,
gonna say
David.
it almost made my list, but I kind of figured that someone else might bring it up, so I'm glad you did because I was like, oh no, I'll pass that one. But yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. It's I think the last time I watched it was when at least one of my kids was a baby, and so that particular viewing of it, the kind of the whole parenting aspect of the film really hit me, and it does work really well as a kind of really messed up satire of parenthood, and it really worked a charm in that
Yeah.
in a way. If charm might not be the word for a razor head, but it's but no, I absolutely love it. I think it, yeah, again, I think it could possibly be my favorite David Lynch film. It's definitely up there.
David, it's your turn. What have you brought for us that's probably not a kung fu movie?
Well, I actually because yeah, at the minute I'm knee deep in martial arts movies for I mean I usually am, but I have better reasons. I'm actually working on a book at the moment about martial arts movies. But actually, because there was a bit of a mix up in years when I first put my name down for this, but when we changed year to 1977, I realized it's not actually a very strong year for martial arts movies. So I've gone a bit rogue, and I've just because I didn't have time to watch anything new, I've basically gone through my website and looked for 1977 films that I really liked and just picked out some of my favorites. So it's quite a wildly eclectic mix. There is one martial arts film in there, so I couldn't resist.
Fine, that's great.
But the first film I'm going to talk about is definitely not a martial arts film, and that is Black Sunday. So yeah,
I love Black Sunday.
Yeah, this is directed by John Frankenheimer and it's based on the debut novel of Thomas Harris, who's more famous for his kind of Hannibal Lecter books. Yeah, and I think from what I gather, it wasn't a big hit on hardback, but after Paramount bought the rights to adapt it to film, the paperback was really successful. But the film itself wasn't that much of a hit. I think Star Wars and like Close Encounters might have been something to do with it, or people just people wanted more light-hearted fare by that point, and this isn't particularly light-hearted. So yeah, Black Sunday. It sees Martha Keller. She plays Dahlia Iyad, and she's a member of Black September, which is a real-life terrorist organization, and she's forged a relationship with a guy called Michael Lander, who's played by Bruce Dern, and he's a disturbed Vietnam vet who had been a prisoner of war. And Lander basically he wants to make a grand statement. He blames the US government and the USA in general for ruining his life. through what happened to him in Vietnam. So he wants to make a grand statement, and he along with Iad, they plan to load the Goodyear blimp, the Goodyear blimp full of explosives and blow up the Super Bowl, basically, and so kill tens of thousands of people, including the president who was there on that particular match because it's during the Super Bowl. But hot on their trail is Major Kabakov, played by Robert Shaw, who's an Israeli Mossad agent who's trying to stop Black September. And it goes on from there. So, and Black Sunday, we talked earlier about disaster movies, and a lot of the time this is kind of classed as a disaster movie, but I don't know, it plays a little different. This is more of a terrorist movie, really. It spends a lot of time with the terrorists. It jumps between them and Robert Shaw, and that's what I found very interesting about this film, is that although it works really well as an intense thriller, it's also surprisingly kind of it adds quite a lot of depth to the terrorists. I mean, it never says their plan is good. It's killing thousands of people is never going to be good. But you do at least hear a little bit about what set them on that path, and they become three-dimensional characters. They're not just random evil kind of people just wanting to kill everybody. So I found that really interesting. But at the same time, like I said, it's still just like an exciting thriller. It's got some really nasty, dark moments in it, and the finale is really good. I mean, there are some of the special effects don't hold up so well, but it's still impressive. I mean, they actually shot some material at the actual Super Bowl, but then mixed that with stuff shot in the studios and some at the stadium when there was no match on and all this kind of stuff. And it's seamlessly put together, and it works really well. And also, it's got a John Williams score. Interestingly, the same year as Star Wars and Close Encounters. It's not as kind of memorable as those scores, and it's used a bit more sporadically. But when it's there, especially in the finale, it's really good, and it's nicely shot. And the cast is great. I mean, Bruce Dern, he gets the kind of the showiest role as the kind of crazy Vietnam vet. But it suits him, and he really goes for it, and it's really good. Shaw's kind of his usual and grizzled, intense kind of self. He's very good, and but it's really Martha Keller, who I thought was she does the more nuanced kind of work here. She's really good as the kind of central terrorist, and so yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, that's it.
I agree. It's one of John Frankenheimer's more underrated films. And I went and saw this in theater expecting a disaster film, and I was, disappointed at the time, but it is an excellent thriller. Yeah. I, however, think the climax is terrible.
Okay.
I think it was thrown in. I mean, the climax is in the book too, but it's almost like it was thrown together as an afterthought, like they felt obligated to
they set up the plot for 90 minutes. You got to have the damn Goodyear blimp show up.
Yeah, but it is so poorly executed, in my opinion. It almost sank the movie at the time, to me.
Oh, I don't know. I went along with that. I mean, some of the effects.
Well, I haven't seen it, and the reason why I haven't seen it, I was going to say I haven't seen it, but I have a weird reason for not having seen it. I keep getting it mixed up with 2 Minute Warning. So every time I see Black Sunday come up, I say, "Oh, I've seen that," but what I've seen is 2 Minute Warning.
I think that's supposed to be another reason why people think it didn't do very well, because, as I say, the book was really successful, but I think because it was quite similar to 2 Minute Warning, which came out not long before, I think it put people off.
Yeah, I really like Black Sunday. I think it's it's very interesting. It's fun. The scene I remember the most is the test of the explosive pellets in the shed there. And I thought that was really effective. And the idea that that's what was going to happen at the Super Bowl was very intriguing, because it's not really just an explosion. It's kind
of a giant nail bomb, isn't it? Almost.
Exactly. So, and I was a little surprised that it didn't get set off well before the blimp dropped onto the field. I'm going to ask, is there anybody else here who's ridden on the Goodyear blimp? Because I did.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
No.
I don't remember exactly what was going on, but when I was a kid, we got a chance to ride on the Goodyear blimp, and apparently it's not atypical. People can do it, but it's limited because there are only so many of them, and they've only got so much room. So it's not like you can say it's not like you went to Disneyland and got on Splash Mountain. Everybody's been on Splash Mountain. So, but it was kind of fun. I'm gonna see if I can find a picture of us on the Goodyear blimp because I know I've got one somewhere. Uh, I'll add it to our show. Well, Black Sunday was kind of on my list originally, but I was trying to find a filter for all the films that I wanted to talk about in 1977, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to do science fiction films without including Star Wars. That just seemed wrong. And John Williams only did three film scores that year instead of five or six, so I didn't have that. And then it suddenly dawned on me what I was doing in the summer of 1977. Like everybody else, I was obsessed with Star Wars. I was in college at the time, but it was the summer between my sophomore and junior year, and I had a lot of time on my hand, and I literally drove down to the Chinese theater every weekend to see Star Wars in the summer.
Mm.
So it was one of those things. If you ever see the picture of the mass group of people standing in front of the theater at the Chinese theater when Star Wars is playing, that's online someplace, it wouldn't surprise me at all that you could find me in that crowd because I was there on a weekly basis with my girlfriend, and we would just go down there and see Star Wars every week for the summer, in addition to Saturday night seeing Rocky Horror Picture Show. So it was a summer that was filled with standard things that we were doing. But I did see other movies in the summer of 1977, and so that's what I decided I would talk about. I'd talk about the summer films that I saw that were not Star Wars. And the first one I'm going to start with is a James Bond film, The Spy Who Loved Me, which is probably Roger Moore's best outing as 007. The Spy Who Loved Me came out in July, so it was almost 2 months after Star Wars had premiered, and Star Wars was still sucking up the atmosphere there. And by the way, Smokey and the Bandit, which got mentioned earlier, that came out the same week as Star Wars?
I hadn't realized that.
Yeah, so it was released at the same time as Star Wars, and that's why it never ended up being the top film at the box office for the weeks that they were listing it, because Star Wars was out also, but it was always listed as number two, and it was it was very successful, but
I was going to say it still
it
made a lot of
wasn't
money, didn't it?
invisible.
That's surprising.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
it was the second biggest film of the year.
Yeah.
And The Spy Who Loved Me made the top 10 list also. It was very successful. It was an important film for Roger Moore because the last film he had done in the 007 series, The Man with the Golden Gun, had not been particularly successful. They made money, they didn't lose money, but it was not the success that other films had been. So it needed to kind of spice things up a little bit. And there was a lot, this is the first film without Harry Saltzman. He had to sell his interest in the series because of a whole series of financial issues. But he didn't want to. He held up the start of making the movie. United Artists contract required a new Bond film every 18 months. If they didn't get started, it was going to be a problem. It was just like there was all kinds of things going on. And McClory, uh, who had the rights to the Thunderball remake that he was planning on doing, which did come out later on, also sued over the name of Spectre and Ernst Stavro Blofeld, because those were names that were originally created for Thunderball, which was the screenplay, the screenplay or the TV series episode that he had worked on with Ian Fleming, and there was a dispute about who created what, and he got the rights to those names, and so they had to change what they were doing in the film. But it still came out pretty well. I think it's very spectacular. It's a lot of fun. Barbara Bach is terrific as Triple X. It has probably the most remembered pre-title sequence when you get to the payoff there with James Bond skiing off the edge of a cliff in the Alps and you know parachuting to safety with the Union Jack on his back. It was pretty cool when it happened. I The Spy Who Loved Me, I saw it a couple of times in the same theater. I went the second time because my best friend at the time had joined the army right after getting out of high school, and he was there. He was home on leave, and he and I had made a habit of seeing the 007 films together. And I thought, I'm not going to get to see it with him, but he was on leave. He came back into town, uh, and we got a chance to see it together. So we kept our streak going, and I really appreciated that. That was so. This is all filled with nostalgia, folks. If you guys are not up for that, you're going to be in trouble when I get around to the next ones.
Spy Who Loved Me has one of the best villains layers. I love the
Oh
Atlantis.
yeah.
Looks like the Legion of Doom, like this big black spider rising out of the water.
It's got a very memorable opening as well. I'm a big Bond fan, and yeah, that's always been one of my favorite of the Roger Moore films as well. It's a whole lot of fun.
What wasn't that that parachute jump a world record at the time?
I think so.
I
I
think
seem to
there
remember
is a
hearing somewhere.
record that's associated with it, yeah,
Yeah,
but I
it's the
can't
best
remember what
Roger
it
Moore
is.
Bond film.
Oh, it definitely is. It definitely is. On my list of Bond films, it's the only Roger Moore film that made the top 10.
Hmm.
Although I enjoy all the others, but it was the one that worked the best for him,
Yeah.
I
Great
think.
song on this one too. Nobody does it better.
Oh yeah.
Very good
Yeah.
song.
I had an extended argument online years ago with Fogues over the best Bond theme song, and he insisted that Nobody Does It Better is the best. And of course, I was defending Goldfinger, but who's going to resolve that? I don't know. Maybe that'll be another podcast sometime.
I'm
Well,
partial
Dave,
to You Know My Name.
Oh, please.
I'm sorry, I'm a Chris Cornell fan.
Yeah, I was going to say up there in the Portland area, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Dave, we're back around to you. So, your teenage fandom, forgotten films over time. What's the next one on your list?
My list continues with Demon Seed.
Oh,
A
I had
film
that as a
that has no
backup on my
right to
list.
be any good, but is.
What's that?
It's a film that has no right to be any good,
I
but
know
is.
it doesn't. It's got Julie Christie, Robert Vaughn, Fritz Weaver, and since it was rated R, my best friend and I had to pay for a PG movie and sneak into this one, which we did quite often, and it allowed us to sample all sorts of forbidden fruit. And conceptually, Demon Seed was certainly forbidden fruit to a couple of teenagers. Not just a horror movie, but a dirty horror movie. At least that's what we were expecting. It isn't, of course, though probably provocative for its time. Julie Christie plays the wife of a brilliant scientist played by Fritz Weaver, who's developed Proteus 4, which is a supercomputer that is self-aware and can do its own thinking without human input. And it's hoped that Proteus will solve some of the world's greatest problems, like discovering cures for cancer and stuff like that. But Proteus has big what?
But he gets horny.
Yeah, he has bigger ambitions, such as procreating. It also resents being trapped in its own circuitry. So after accessing the remote computer terminal in Christie's automated house, it develops a way to impregnate her with plans to transfer all of its knowledge to their newborn child. And needless to say, she's not on board with this plan. None of it is as lurid or stupid as it sounds. And other than some kind of lame attempts at 2001 style trippiness, this is a dark, pretty engaging sci-fi thriller that never really found an audience at the time. And I think part of the reason is that sci-fi aimed at adults was kind of becoming an endangered species, which was exacerbated a few months later when Star Wars came along and redefined the genre for most. But the movie was enough for me to develop a celebrity crush on Julie Christie. And even though she won an Oscar for Darling and is best known for stuff like Dr. Zhivago, for me, she would always be that, bodacious British beauty from Demon Seed. But the real star of the movie is Robert Vaughn. He's the voice of Proteus, and the role was uncredited. And I didn't know who he was at the time, but his distinctive voice really made Proteus a menacing character. To me, not quite as menacing as HAL 9000, but it was a chilling performance, and it's still an enjoyable film to watch. It's, you know, it suffers from some 70s trappings aesthetically, but it's still got a great story. Maybe even ripe for a remake of some kind.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, I haven't watched this in many many years, and I wonder how it would all register watching it. Now where we have Alexa and AI of various forms that are a regular everyday thing for us. So
Yeah, AI in your house operating all of the equipment. My memory of the movie was that Julie Christie gets trapped by all of that kind of integration of the computer system with the household items, the what later on would be referred to as the Internet of Things. Uh, they kind of take over the house, and Proteus has her trapped there. I saw this movie with my friend John Cassinelli in 1977 in a theater in the San Fernando Valley, and I just saw it the one time. But I remember enough of it that like I said, there were a couple of things that were, so it's a semi-forgotten film for me. It isn't a completely forgotten film because I did see it and I remembered bits and pieces of it, but I forget the payoff. I forgot that Robert Vaughn was the voice. Uh, I remembered that it was a little bit lurid because let's face it, the idea that the machine is going to impregnate this woman sounds quite titillating. I don't remember whether there was any nudity or not.
No, there isn't.
Okay. So it's just one of those things that hook kids in, you know, sneak in from the PG films, folks.
Mhm.
We're next door. Come see us. I like that. Todd, whatever random thing are you talking about next?
Well, I know this film got talked a bit about last week, but I wasn't on that show, so I'm going to share some of my love for High Anxiety. um, because I've always loved Mel Brooks's stuff. I was disappointed not to be on that show, but that's because I didn't sign up, so that's on me. But it this is a film that I feel like every time I watch it, I gain a deeper level of appreciation for it, and it's one that it's like it helps push you on that journey to becoming even more of a shameless cinephile. There's just so many layers to it that every time I go, oh, look at that. Um, you're working with a bunch of the Brooks all stars here: Madeline Kahn, Cloris Leachman, Harvey Korman, all doing great stuff. I think it's wonderful that it's a film that goes for some complex humor, but is also not beneath doing a parody of the birds that is all about poop. I mean, it has to go that way. I mean, it'd be a
Sure,
disappointment if it didn't. Um, Also, the psycho bit with the newspaper, Barry Levinson of all
that's
people
funny.
being the one. Um, the I even love the song on this one. Is it
High
weirdly out of place?
anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, why all of a sudden is there a song in the middle of this? But I love it. I love the little bit that Mel Brooks does at the end of it where he says, and remember, folks, be good to your parents. They've been good to you. um, so yeah, the first time I watched High Anxiety when I was a teenager, was not as deep into being a huge film fan as I am now. So, a lot of the humor of this film went right past me. But now, you know, with every rewatch, it's just like, oh, Brooks is so smart. Look at what he's doing here. So yeah, I got to share some of my love for this one as well.
Yeah, we did talk about it on the show last week, and I didn't mention that very same thing that you had. When I first saw it, I didn't know as many of the references as I would later come to know after watching more of the Hitchcock films, but I remembered enjoying it quite a bit, and ones that I did understand, I appreciated quite a bit. And after having seen most of the Hitchcock films that get referenced in the film, I appreciate it even more. I think I had it highest on our list of anybody on last week's show. So you're good with me.
You know, it's the one Brooks film, I don't know, along with Silent Movie, it just among his classic, those two just seem to lost in the shuffle. I always
Mm.
forget about that one. But every time it shows up on television or I've, seen it, I've enjoyed it just as much as Blazing Saddles or Spaceballs or I think it's probably his most underappreciated parody film anyway.
Yeah.
The parody films for sure. Well, Howard, what's the fourth best film of 1977 according to you?
Well, it is one of three movies that helped start the neo-noir genre, along with we had Chinatown, we had Night Moves, and then we had The Late Show
Ah, it's a
with
good
Art
film.
Carney and Lily Tomlin.
This was a very early episode of the Forgotten Film Cast. Yeah.
I've seen it. Yeah, I think I even mentioned it to you once, but I guess it had
You
already
might-
been done. So what
Yeah,
could you do?
yeah.
Yeah, I really love this film. I still think it holds up, and it's a tribute to those private eye films of the 1940s and 50s. It's an aging private detective is trying to solve the case of his partner's murder while dealing with Lily Tomlin, who has come to him to hire him to find her lost cat. And then things get very complicated after that. It has some marvelous scenes in it. I think Lily Tomlin is hysterical. Art Carney, I think, deserved an Oscar nomination. He did get some critics awards for it, and I highly recommend it.
He'd already won an Academy Award for starring with a cat.
Right. Well, now he's looking for a cat, but yes. I just wanted the
speaking of the
nomination.
neo-noir element, there's a cat that's featured in The Long Goodbye with Elliot Gould. So somehow cats are deeply entrenched in this mid-70s noir element here. This is a fun movie, and Howard, not only did you try to get Todd to cover it on the show that he'd already covered it, we've suggested it. I think you've suggested it once or twice, and I've suggested it once or twice for Movie of the Month, and it just hasn't picked up enough votes. So if you guys want to talk about The Late Show, we'll put it on the list again at some point, and hopefully you can generate some interest in it because I think it's a quality film.
Folks just don't know it. It's one that you mention to people and they're like, I've never heard of that thing before. But yeah, I mean, it's right up there with looking at some of those other detective films of the 70s. It fits very well with that.
All right, David, we're back to you. What else have you got on your list?
Well, as promised, I do have one martial arts film on the list. And this one's a bit of a lesser known one that I just wanted to bring up because I do quite enjoy it, and that's the Shaolin Plot. So this is written and directed by Huang Feng, who was he was kind of Sammo Hung's mentor when he was getting started in the industry, and Sammo Hung actually this is one of his first starring roles, kind of main roles. It's a bit of an ensemble piece, really, if you can call it that. So he's not like the lead, but he's one of the kind of 3 or 4 leads in the film. And yeah, it's a Golden Harvest film, but it's a Golden Harvest film that kind of has a Shaw Brothers feel because it's like a period set. It's quite grand. It looks quite impressive. And yeah, it sees the villainous Manchu Prince Daglen. He embarks on a quest to collect these secret martial arts manuals from the 4 kind of most renowned schools in China, and none of them want to give it up without a fight, of course. But he has kind of devious ways to get what he wants. And after his father sacrifices his life to save his sons, and his manuals fall into the hands of the enemy, Little Tiger, who's played by James Tien, who was kind of the martial arts star who never was, he got overshadowed by Bruce Lee, but he plots to get revenge, and he hides out with an exiled Shaolin monk called Pu Hui, and who's blinded after fending off one of the bad guys' goons, played by Sammo Hung. And he trains Little Tiger in the arts of Shaolin, so he might be strong enough to get the manuals back. And meanwhile, Daglen plots to find the manuals for his collection from the Shaolin Temple. The monks, there are many monks, and they're very strong, powerful, and well trained, so he can't use his usual strong arm tactics to get the manuals. So instead, he disguises himself as a disfigured, like deaf and mute monk to infiltrate the temple and secretly steal the manuscripts. And Little Tiger hears about this and tries to put an end to Daglin's reign of terror. So it's a fairly standard kind of martial arts plot, but it's got some nice little twists in there. And it's also got interesting kind of touches on the kind of spiritual side of the Shaolin. It's not just about fighting. There's a little bit more. I mean, there's a lot of fighting in there. I won't lie, but it does have a little bit more depth, a little bit more to it. It's also, it shoots occasionally on location, whereas the Shaw Brothers tends to be stuck in the studio. Golden Harvest didn't have a big enough studio really at that time, so they do use some sets, but they also go out and they shot some of it in Korea, and there's some Korean temples that kind of add a grand kind of authenticity to the visuals. And when it comes to kung fu, Sammo Hung also choreograph the fight scenes, and they're very good because the bad guys kind of taking on these different schools. You get to see a few different styles of fighting, and there's quite a few weapons in there as well. I'm a sucker for weapon combat. Although Sammo's character, he has these killer symbols which are kind of ridiculous, but other than that, it's more kind of standard sort of stuff. And it's just a decent, it's nicely shot, action packed, kind of old school treat. Interesting because it's 1977. This is around this time, like Golden Harvest was really more after the success of the Bruce Lee films in the early 70s. They tended to do more kind of modern day sort of kung fu sort of fist fighty sort of stuff. But this sees them going back to the kind of Shaw Brothers tradition which came before Bruce Lee. So it was a really odd choice to kind of make a film like this at that time. But I guess in 77, the kind of martial arts was losing its kind of it wasn't as big as it was in the early 70s. It wasn't until the 1978 when the kung fu comedies kind of came about and Jackie Chan became a star. That's when kung fu came back. So 77 was a bit of a murky year when they were still trying to figure out what to do. So I guess that's why maybe they tried to go back and do kind of something a bit more old fashioned. So yeah, but it's a decent film. I enjoyed it a lot.
Has anybody else seen it?
No, I haven't seen it. I was just looking at it. It's not that easy to find a copy of here stateside, it looks like. So
again, because it's one I've reviewed on the website, it has got a nice shiny Blu-ray in the UK by Eureka. But I guess it's not made it stateside yet.
Well, I'm going to move a film up on my list to discuss since you've mentioned this film, and since we've gotten on the Kung Fu discussion here, because I have a film that also features a Kung Fu presentation. Fistful of Yen is the name of the movie that's deeply entrenched in another film.
I know
the Kentucky
this.
Fried movie. So the Kentucky Fried movie is the first of the Abrahams Zucker films, based on their sort of stage presentation that they did. They moved from their home, what is it, Wisconsin, I think it is, to Los Angeles, and dragged the concept that they had of putting on these performances that included, skits and sketches that they had created, and turned it into a film. And this is John Landis's first film as a director. It's
second film.
Second film. No, that's right, because he'd done, what was
Schlock.
it? Schlock? Yeah. Well, let's say it was his first successful film as a director.
Yes.
Because it did do some business. And Fistful of Yen it's 31 minutes of the film. The film runs, I don't know, probably not quite 200 minutes. Excuse me, not quite. It's a short film. It's 83 minutes. 83 minutes. Yeah, I just looked it up. And so it's more than a third of the movie. It's a substantial part of the movie, but like I said, most of the film is made up of vignettes that are, takeoffs and parodies of other movies or contemporary pop culture references, TV shows, situations. There's a lot of stuff that happens in the movie that it's fun. It's also incredibly crude at times. I think my friends and I use the title of Catholic high school girls in trouble repeatedly to describe some lurid film that we were going to go see. It's on a double feature with Catholic High School Girls in Trouble. So that we would use to encourage each other to go to the movie. And it was just it was successful and very funny. There's one sequence, what do they call it? Feel around.
That's the one I always remember the most from this film.
Well, it's funny because it's filmed in the Rialto Theater, which I didn't mention before, is where I went to see Rocky Horror almost every Saturday in 1977. So that is the theater that's featured in that particular movie. And the payoff line at the end about what the next show is great because he says, our next feature is Deep Throat. And the look on the guy's face is like, okay, this is not going to work out the way I want it to.
I don't think a
It's
feel around showing of Rocky Horror would be any better.
no, no, no. But it's a lot of fun, and it belongs to a genre that doesn't get made anymore. These kind of anthology skit kinds of films. I think that got those sorts of movies. We had Groove Tube and uh,
Tunnel Vision.
Tunnel Vision, Amazon
Mm.
Women on the Moon. There were a whole bunch of them in this time period. And I think once cable TV came along, there were a lot of shows that could do the same sort of thing. Like the advantage that this had over Saturday Night Live is it could feature nudity and language issues that you could probably not get away with on broadcast television, even at, midnight on Saturday. So, but once cable became ubiquitous, I think these kinds of films probably became unnecessary because they're going to be featured on a lot of cable shows, and they could get away with the kind of crap that was going on here.
It is the best of those sketch
Oh yeah,
movies
yeah.
Yeah.
by far.
I'll also mention it's the very first film that I wrote about on my blog. So when I started blogging, which led me to the podcast world a half dozen years later, this is the film that I started my summer project with. And my original summer project was films that I saw in the 1970s in the summers. So I know that this belongs on our list. And I just, like I said, I moved it up because we were having a Shaolin plot, and I just thought, well, A Fistful of Yen is a nice companion piece to go with it. Well, Dave Anderson, we're back around to you. What have you got?
The next one's easily the weirdest movie on my list, and that is The Car.
Oh, I love The Car.
Yeah, it's hard not to. This one stars James Brolin and Ronnie Cox. The plot is pretty simple. A small town is terrorized by a driverless black sedan which speeds along desert highways and kills anyone unfortunate enough to be on the road at the same time. And Brolin is the town sheriff trying to deal with the mounting body count. And it predates Christine in that this car is established as pure evil. It's powered by Satan and even avoids sacred ground, like a local cemetery. And it also chooses not to mow down the one human character who's also established as repugnant and evil, an abusive husband who's played by R.G. Armstrong. Plot-wise, it's obviously inspired by the success of Jaws, and the car's story is very similarly structured. The dialogue is often really, really awful, and some of the performances are laughable. A standout is Kathleen Lloyd as Brolin's girlfriend, as an example of both, such as when she taunts the car from the safety of the cemetery. It is just a cringe-worthy performance, and not helped by the dialogue that she's been forced to say. But that does set up the movie's best scene when this car crashes through her living room window to take her out. And also, I've never seen a movie where a wife beater ends up being one of the heroes. But collectively, the characters are the worst aspect of this movie. Still, the car is compulsively watchable. It's got a really strange overall vibe that approaches surreal, especially its desert setting. But it's never ambiguous or anything like that. But it's just got a strange tone to it. And the devil embodied as a vehicle seems like a laughable concept, but the movie pulls it off pretty well. The film's never terrifying or even scary, but the car is creepy looking and intimidating. and really loud. The sequences of it speeding through the desert, as well as some great point of view shots, they look and sound really cool. And I walked out of this not thinking I saw anything, life changing, but I had a great time watching this film. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Simplistic, but a lot of fun.
There's something very charming about the evil car movies, even some of the cheesier ones like the hearse or what have you. But the car is fun. I remember when I watched it, I'm pretty sure it's the opening sequence. They're on this mountainy type of a road, and I'm looking at it going, I've driven on that road, and I was like, that's in Zion National Park, I'm sure of it. And I looked it up, and it was because once you've driven that road, you remember it. It's a little bit like and there's all these tunnels through the rocks, and you're way up high and zigzagging down the thing, and I was like, I've totally driven that road. But yeah, the car is a fun cheesy little movie.
Well, I can tell you exactly how bad the reviews must have been. This would be a movie that I would definitely have gone to, except I remember reading about how terrible it was and said, well, I can skip that.
And I can see why people think it's terrible. I don't share the opinion, but I certainly see why some people would think that. And as far as that, the vehicle itself, it was designed by George Barris, who also designed the original Batmobile. And I believe Guillermo del Toro has either a full-size replica or one of the actual original cars used in the film in his little personal museum he's got.
Nice to be able to collect something that large and keep it as a personal memento.
Yeah, I had to settle for a little die-cast version,
that's
which I paid $120 for.
There you are. Well, Todd, random whatever.
Well, yeah, let's be random and we'll go to a documentary, which, I always say that I think documentaries about subjects that I care nothing about that draw me in, they're doing the job right as a documentary. So Pumping Iron is the film we're going to talk about. I just find this movie fascinating, and I have absolutely no interest in bodybuilding whatsoever. And I think, it is certainly a film that watching it today, it's cool to watch it because it gives you such a different picture of this man that we know so well now, Arnold Schwarzenegger. We've got this image, even just within a few years of after this movie came out, we had such a different image of who Arnold Schwarzenegger was when it came to him being Conan and the Terminator. He was he was an actor, and here seeing him as a bodybuilder and kind of the bad guy of this story is just fascinating. I think the dynamic between him and Lou Ferrigno is amazing in this film, and Ferrigno just comes off as such a wonderful, sympathetic character in this. You just fall in love with the guy. I was thinking about it this morning, getting ready for the show, and I was like, oh, you know what? It would be perfect to do a double bill of is Pumping Iron with the King of Kong. It's that same kind of vibe with your two lead characters here. Though in Pumping Iron, like I said, the bad guy is a guy that we love from all of his other movies, and we're supposed to kind of hate him a bit in this movie. So yeah, Pumping Iron is just a fascinating film.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think like a lot of the best kind of documentaries, it really rides on those characters, if you call them, or subjects or characters, whatever. It's you just love watching them do their thing. It's fantastic. I love that film.
I've never seen Pumping Iron. I know about it. The Schwarzenegger film that I was introduced to him in is the Stay Hungry, which was 1976, I think. So
yeah,
before this came out. So I've heard great things about it, and I've heard it's very interesting and intriguing. And like you, I have no interest in bodybuilding, which is evidenced by every picture ever taken of me. But it sounds like it would be, it's worth watching. I just haven't gotten around to it. Well, Howard, what did you get around to in 1977 that you thought was the third best film of the year?
Oh, this is a foreign film. I finally
Really?
have a foreign film. Yes. And it is called Soldier of Orange. This was a Dutch film, uh, written and co-written and directed by Paul Verhoeven. Paul
Hoffman.
Verhoeven before he ruined his career by coming to the U.S. and making films. Uh, it's it revolves around some students that become involved in the resistance during World War II when Germany occupies the Netherlands. It's a bit over the top in directing style, which, who hasn't accused Paul Verhoeven of being a bit over the top at
What?
times? But I think it's one of his best films. And it received quite a bit of notice. It got a Golden Globe nomination for Best Foreign Language Film, and is one of the most popular Dutch films. It was the most popular one of 1977, and it's considered like the second best Dutch film of the 20th century. So I highly recommend it.
Did you say Verhoeven ruined his career by coming to America?
Yes, that's what Howard said. Remember,
okay.
he's an iconoclast.
I wasn't sure I heard that right. Okay.
He's always taken this position that is going to be antagonistic to, not antagonistic, but off the beaten path from everybody else.
That's
If you listen
definitely
to
off the
last
beaten
week's show,
path.
you'll discover that. And of course, when we discuss the Odyssey, he's the outlier on that one. I think Howard likes to take those positions because he has a unique perspective on the world. And look, I think there are several Verhoeven films that were made in America and Hollywood that are worthwhile and good, but that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about Soldier of Orange. Has anybody else seen it?
No,
No.
so it's sat on my shelf along with a lot of other films I've not got around to yet. But yeah, I've heard it's very good.
It's on my list of shame.
Yeah,
I haven't seen it.
I love all of his films that he made in the Netherlands. And now I'm liking his films now that he's no longer making films in the US
yeah.
anymore. I enjoy his US films. I just don't
Yeah.
think they're anywhere near the quality of his early and later films.
All right. David, we're back to you.
Yeah, and I am also abroad for my next film. I think I've got a different country for every entry this time. So
Nice.
I am traveling to Japan now to take a look at House, otherwise known as Houseu. So yeah, this is directed by Nobuhiko Obayashi. I hope I've got that right. And it's supposedly the story goes that he was told by Toho to he'd really be previously he'd kind of be making experimental films and commercials and things in the 60s and 70s, but Toho approached him and they wanted him to make something like Jaws that would help rejuvenate the Japanese film industry, which was struggling against the Hollywood blockbusters. But instead he developed some ideas from his young daughter into House, which is about as far from Jaws as you can possibly get. Yeah, it's on paper, like the plot is nothing special really. It's basically about school is broken up for the holidays, and this girl called Angel is supposed to be travel to the country with her father, and her 6 friends are supposed to go camping with a teacher, but various things go wrong, and instead they all decide to go to Angel's aunt's house. She's not seen the aunt for years, and they go to visit a house in the country, but little as they know, Angel's aunt is some kind of witch and her house is haunted. So the girls have to face all these crazy tricks and traps set against them as they're kind of attacked and basically consumed by the house one by one. So yeah, it just sounds like a kind of cheesy horror movie, but it's absolutely bonkers. It's just one of those kind of films that you've just got to experience. I think it's got one of these kind of everything but the kitchen sink approaches. I think because it was his first film and because he had a background in experimental cinema, Obayashi I think just wanted to show what he could do, and he just threw everything into the film. It's absolutely bonkers, and it's so, but not just in terms of like it's kind of a bit wacky and kind of all over the place, but also in terms of I can't think of the word, kind of technical aspects of filmmaking. So he throws in kind of overlaid close-ups. He's got jump cuts. There's bits of green screen, or probably blue screen back then, animation. There's like matte paintings and altered frame rates and things. He just throws everything in there, and it just, for me, I mean, people love it because it's so kind of crazy. It's got a bit of a cult following these days. But for me, it's just kind of almost a celebration of what is possible on film and in cinema. It's just, it shouldn't work. It sounds like a mess, and I wouldn't argue if somebody called it a mess, but it's kind of also kind of a glorious kind of celebration of chaos. It's I think Obayashi himself kind of described his approach to the film as charming chaos, because it's kind of right. I mean, you've got these kind of teenage girls and stuff, and there is a kind of a charming kind of innocence to their kind of story, but then you throw in pianos that eat people's hands off, and their fingers start playing by themselves afterwards, and it's just absolute madness, and all the better for it.
Yeah,
I haven't
it's a
seen
movie
that
that
one.
I mean, any description is underselling it in terms of what is in this movie. It's completely like nothing else you've ever seen, and yeah, there's no excuse to not watch it out there. It's on several streaming services here in the U.S. It's on Criterion, it's on HBO, it's on even on Tubi right now. So it is there to be watched, and it is an experience like none other.
I've had it recommended to me many times, but I've not caught it yet.
I just bought it during Criterion sale, but I haven't opened it yet. So
on Pop Art, we combined it with Poltergeist.
Oh, nice.
Those two together.
It sounds like what the director did was what I warned my students against whenever they started figuring out how to use PowerPoint. They'd want to add everything they could find in PowerPoint to their presentations in class. Oh, I can animate all of the text. I can change the colors for each letter. I can add a picture. I can have the picture scroll across the screen backwards and forwards. I can add a lightning bolt effect here. Every time they found a new button, they said, well, let me put that in the presentation as well. And I'm going, no, don't do that. It's too much, But it sounds like it kind of works in this one.
Yeah, definitely.
I knew David would cover this one. I thought about putting it on my list, but I was like, "No, David's on the show. He'll bring it up."
Well, the summer of 1977 was knee-deep in all kinds of cool films to see. And the next one I've got is the second Robert Shaw film that we're going to be talking about on this show at least. And that's The Deep, which came out in July and was pretty successful. It's inspired by a Peter Benchley novel. He became the hot thing after Jaws was the biggest success in the world. And people were scrambling to make movies out of his novels. And The Deep was a pretty successful adaptation of the novel, and it did good work at the box office. It's a treasure hunting film where Nick Nolte and Jacqueline Bisset are tourists who discover when they are diving in a kind of a touristy kind of exercise, and they come across some indications that there's a treasure in the area, but the treasure is also buried under a derelict vessel from World War II that contains a substantial supply of morphine. And so it becomes a kind of a drug lord against the treasure hunters film. And let's face it, there's a reason that this film got so much attention. I'm going to tell you right now, of all the posts that I've done on my site over the years, the one that gets the most hits is The Deep. And the reason for that is that I feature a picture of the most famous image from The Deep in the post. And so all the pervs out there who are looking for images, a particular kind of image, they probably end up clicking on my site just by accident, because I do have that picture of Jacqueline Bisset swimming underwater in her wet t-shirt. Holy criminy, what a great shot.
I think that's a universal thing for us that have movie blogs, because one of the most popular posts on my site has always been one that I did way back when I first started it, a review of Under the Rainbow with Chevy Chase and Carrie Fisher, and she spends half that movie in her underwear. And so I get lots of hits on that review.
There you
Yeah,
are.
I always get I mean, I do get some for like images like that, but also bizarrely I get my weekends of trash that I do. Well, I've done lots of them, but whenever I title them on the website, I use Roman numerals, and I've got up to number 30. I've got past number 30 now. So my posts for weekend of trash 30 is
XXX.
XXX. So I always get loads of hits on that page. It's, there's a lot of
The internet of porn.
yeah.
Back to the Deep, though. I mean, this is one I didn't see until fairly recently, the last couple of years. And I think I had always kind of written it off as being like, oh, it came a few years after Jaws. It's even Peter Benchley again. They're just trying to ride on the coattails of that movie. No, the Deep is pretty solid. I liked it.
Yeah, no, it's good, and it's got a great cast. It's Robert Shaw is the star, of course, and Jack LaBiscuit and Nick Nolte are also important parts of the film. Lou Gossett Jr. is the villain. Eli Wallach is in the film,
Oh, can't
and
go wrong there.
yeah, and those of you who are '70s aficionados, Robert Tessier is in the film as Shaw's, buddy and kind of not quite bodyguard, but assistant. And those of you who are familiar with '70s films will recognize him immediately. He's an intimidating looking guy who played intimidating looking guys.
And for Jaws fans, there is a little critter in there that does some damage.
Oh yeah. There's underwater action, which is pretty good. And the poster is really just an inversion of Jaws. The Jaws poster features a woman in danger on the surface. In the deep, it features a woman in danger under the surface, trying to climb to the surface. So she replaces the shark trying to get to the top of the surface. So they wanted as many connections to Jaws as they could get in the marketing. And that seemed to have helped, but I'm sure the T-shirt probably made the biggest contribution to the summer box office that year.
Yeah, I was going to say my biggest memory of it is that I always thought Jacqueline's last name was pronounced Bisset. And then it was like in the Times or Newsweek where it said Jacqueline Bisset rhymes with kiss it. And I've never forgotten how to pronounce her name since.
Well, good. I'm glad that you're not mispronouncing it nowadays and fooling everybody with your French. Dave Anderson, we're back to you.
Okay, another one I thought was going to be a disaster movie, but wasn't, is Roller Coaster. This one has George Segal and Richard Whitmark and Henry Fonda and Timothy Bottoms. It was the third of 4 movies that were presented in theaters in Sense-Around, which was a gimmick developed by Universal Studios that involved the use of massive speakers installed in select theaters, which gave off this bass-heavy rumble that you felt more than you heard. It was first used in Earthquake, and then in the war movie Midway, and then later on, I think in '79, it was used in the theatrical version of Battlestar Galactica. It was really only effective in Earthquake, and in Roller Coaster, its use is a little more gratuitous, and it's used in numerous scenes that put the viewer in the front car of these roller coaster rides. And it was promoted as a disaster movie, but it's more of a cat and mouse thriller that certainly didn't need Sense-Around. George Segal plays a guy named Harry Calder. He's a park safety inspector who's tasked with helping thwart the plans of a mad bomber who threatens to blow up roller coasters around the country until the park owners pony up $1 million. It seems like $1 million was the standard ransom for all movie villains in the '70s. And anyway, after the bomber is duped with a ransom payment of marked bills, Calder deduces that he's going to retaliate by targeting the grand opening of the Great American Revolution coaster at Magic Mountain. Now, at the time, the Great American Revolution was a big deal because I think it was the first coaster that featured a full vertical loop, and that was heavily hyped and promoted in the film too. And it figures prominently in the climax. And it, I'm sure it didn't hurt Magic Mountain itself, using that as a promotional tool. And it sure made me want to skip Disneyland and go there the next time we visited California for vacation. At the time, I was a little bit disappointed that this wasn't a disaster movie, but the story is actually pretty good. Siegel is pretty fun as Calder, and I've always had a soft spot for Richard Whitmark, even though at this stage of his career he was basically playing the same guy over and over again. And the point of view scenes, of the coaster rides were really great, especially on the big screen. Of all the films on my list, this is probably the one that loses the most of its impact watching at home. The story is still enjoyable and it keeps you interested, but this was one of those movies that was probably best experienced back in '77 for the short time it played in theaters.
Yeah, it was not as successful as they thought it was going to be because it is a thriller and it does feature something that would be appealing to the audience of the era, the roller coaster phenomena. A lot of people were enthusiastic about that. Magic Mountain was, I lived in Southern California and it was one of those places that I went to on a regular basis. I had actually worked at Magic Mountain with my father in 1971. He did a stage show there for 2 weeks at Christmas time, and I got to ride everything I wanted whenever I wanted, and so I rode
Nice.
the roller coaster pretty regularly. And so when it was featured in the movie, that was exciting. It was fun to see that. And I was a fan of George Segal. I liked him in the movies. So, but as I recall, Henry Fonda literally phones in his performance.
He did that for a lot of '70s movies. He literally phoned it.
He's
phoned in
on
his
the phone. That's it.
Same with an Italian film he did called Tentacles. He's literally on the phone in that one too. I mean, it's nice work if you can get it.
Yeah.
Um,
It's and you can, there's just a certain look that some Universal films of the '70s had, and this is clearly a Universal film. It
Yeah.
just, it has this sort of the lighting, the photography. It's got a very distinctive, it feels like a back lot, even when they're not on a back lot. All right. I didn't mean to diss Roller Coaster. I think it's a fine film. Todd, what random thing do you have for us next?
Well, my new podcast project is all about animation, so I'm going to go to animation this time. And a filmmaker that I'm not the biggest fan of, though I appreciate his work. And I saw this one recently for the first time and was like, okay, that's more the place I like him to be. I'm talking about Ralph Bakshi and his film Wizards, uh, which, I've always been a little frustrated with Bakshi because I appreciate things about like his character designs and things like that, but at the same time, I find his approach to often be kind of childish and he's far too fascinated with large-breasted women and things like that. All right, whatever.
Russ
But
Meyer of animation.
yeah, basically, yeah. But I think Wizards kind of hits the right spot. The right balance of things. It's a fantasy story that I think does a good job of mixing elements that are, maybe geared at a bit younger audience, but there's still a bit of an edge to it that is more in terms of more closer to Bakshi's normal style, but this is a bit more, I don't know, playful than some of his other films, yet still has a bit of that sinister streak. I really like the character designs in this, some really unique stuff. He does still, have some of his buxom ladies in this, but it's not quite to the extreme of other things. This also doesn't have his over reliance on rotoscoping. There is still rotoscoping in this, but it's not to the level that you see in like Lord of the Rings and things like that. So I think he's striking a much better balance to what he can do here. And it's a fun little fantasy story, where you've got a bunch of characters on a quest of some sort, and you meet various odd characters along the way. So yeah, I think when it comes to what Ralph Bakshi can deliver, Wizards is the kind of the best spot for him. I think not hanging out in the gritty streets and things like this. I think in the fantasy realm here, he's doing things much better.
He called this his one family film. I don't know if I'd go that far, but I suppose comparatively speaking,
Comparatively speaking,
Comparatively speaking, yes. Well, I told you guys you're going to be on the nostalgia train here because I've got all kinds of memories from this era, and I feel like I need to share them. I saw Wizards at an advanced screening on the USC campus in December of 1976 in Bovard Auditorium, and I remembered it because my girlfriend went with me to see it, and we had a great time. I ran into some of my fellow debaters at the event and we hadn't coordinated. They just showed up, and I remember sitting with them. They were fans of Ralph Bakshi, so I said, "Okay, that's great." It was nice. But they ran a trailer with Wizards, and the trailer was for a little film that was coming out in 6 months. And that's the first time I saw anything about Star Wars.
Ah.
Howard, it's your turn. Number 2 for the year.
Well, we have now reached the top two, which they will not only be the two best films of 1977, they are two of the greatest films ever made. And number 2 will be Close Encounters of the Third Kind. For me, this is Steven Spielberg's greatest film. I like his the version that he re-edited, whatever you call it, better than the original. So I think he did improve it afterwards. But I just think it's wonderful. Richard Dreyfuss is great, so is Melinda Dillon. It has a great cast. Truffaut hated it. He thought all this waste of money on this film. But yeah, I'm not sure what else to say about Close Encounters of the Third Kind, except that it's one of the greats, and it's Steven Spielberg's greatest film.
I do know one thing. When I saw this in the theater as a kid, the shot of the mothership coming over Devil's Tower was the most mind-blowing thing I'd seen on a screen at the time.
Spectacular, yeah. Oh, I've been to a lot of the national parks and national monuments here in our area. Devil's Tower is up in Wyoming. I've never actually been in the park, but was driving down the highway towards Rapid City, South Dakota, and could see it sticking up out there in the distance. Like, there it is, it's real! Oh my gosh, look at that! Yeah, no, I mean, Close Encounters is just a spectacular film. It's amazing.
And some of the best use of music as well. It's so iconic.
Yeah, it's one of John Williams' top 5 scores.
I'm kind of surprised that's on your list, Howard, judging by what you usually, talk about.
Seems so conventional.
Yeah.
Oh, so conventional.
Well, mostly because it's so popular, not because it's a conventional film, but because it's a popular film, and you're usually a little bit off the beaten path.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, and no, I'm not insulted or anything. I think you have a point. It was just that this year, it's like when Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King won the New York Film Critics Award, and said, sometimes that's just the way it is. Pop culture film is like there at the top.
Sometimes there's an alignment.
Right.
Number 3 at the box office for the year, I think, right?
Yeah, or after Smokey and the Bandit and Star Wars. Yes. It was a terrific film, and I've told the story before a couple of times. I was getting vengeance on some of my friends who had gone to a film without me, and I saw the movie, and when I was talking to them about it later on, I told them, "Oh yeah, you think at the end they're going off, it's all benevolent and great, and then the spaceship obliterates the Earth at the end." And when they finally saw the film, they were a little surprised that it didn't turn out quite as dramatically awful as I had suggested. I was just pissed at them. Well, David, tell us what you are sharing with us next, and tell us that you're not doing it because you were pissed at us.
Well, my next film, you were all surprised by a more mainstream title there, but I'll put your mind at rest and do something incredibly non-mainstream. I'm gonna talk about Tomorrow I'll Wake Up and Scald Myself with Tea, which is it's a Czechoslovakian film by Jindřich Polák, and it tells of a former Nazi, Klaus Abad. He manages to survive. This is set in the future. This is set in the 1990s, the then future. And basically, there's a former Nazi who's managed to survive to the 90s by taking these anti-aging pills. But he plans to use a time machine, which has been invented by the 90s. Can you remember those? But anyway, and he plans to return to Germany in 1944 and give Hitler the hydrogen bomb so that he can win the war and so the Nazis can win and change the course of history. But unfortunately, on the morning of the mission, the guy who's supposed to pilot the time machine chokes on a bread roll and dies. And but he has a twin brother called Jan, who's always been a bit jealous of his brother's kind of success, his job, and all this kind of stuff. So he impersonates him because he's an identical twin. He goes, "Well, I'll do this mission for him," but he knows nothing about the plot. He doesn't know he doesn't know what's going on at all. So he goes on this mission with the Nazi, and it all goes wrong, as you might expect. Yeah, this is a wonderful little film. It's got quite an interesting story in the UK, because as I say, it's a very obscure kind of Czechoslovakian film, but it got a very, 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 very small cult following in the 80s. Back in 1982, there's a popular program in the UK called The Match of the Day, which is basically the weekly kind of football show in the UK. And that was delayed. There were matches were delayed for whatever reason. So the program was pushed back an hour. And this was a time when there were only 3 channels on TV in the UK. So people who couldn't watch the Match of the Day was like, oh, what should we watch? And that just happened to be the evening that, for some reason, BBC Two decided to put this incredibly obscure Czechoslovakian film on, and loads of these football fans randomly tuned into it because there's nothing else to watch. And supposedly it created this kind of bizarre little mini cult following. So I just found that an interesting story. Anyway, back to the film. It's I'd say from the kind of synopsis, it sounds really wacky and crazy. And I mean, there is some of that there, but it's also a really, really carefully constructed kind of time travel comedy where everything kind of works like clockwork. What's quite nice about it, when it first starts, it feels a little, because I had quite high expectations about this film, because it's Andy Goulding had raved about it, and so when I finally got around to watching it, I was very excited. And the first maybe half hour I was like, oh, it's kind of fun. But what happens, there's lots of little details that kind of come back into play as you get these kind of time going back and forth in time and things like that are really cleverly done. And it's just, by the end, it was absolute joy. I just totally fell in love with it. And it's one of these films that you need to. It's one of these films that, if you've seen it and you love it, you just want to tell everyone about it. And as I say, and Andy sold it to me, and I'm trying to sell it to you guys. I don't know if anyone else has seen it, but
you sold me. I want to see it.
Fascinating. But boy, is that title off-putting?
Yeah, well, that's kind of the silly point, but I loved it. I think it's such a bizarre title.
Is there any reason for the title?
I guess so, because there's a bit of a.
Is there a scene that involves this?
Yeah, I think so. I say it's been a while since I've seen it now. I'm referring to my notes. I believe there is. I might be wrong, because it's been like 10 years or so since I saw it. But I think there is. It's to do with kind of the because there's a little bit of a time loop aspect to it. You're kind of going back and forth trying to fix his what went wrong. So yeah, I might be wrong, but I think there is.
All right. Well, interesting choice. I don't know who was in charge of marketing there, but the best thing sounds like it got randomly put on. And that was it.
And that was the only time it ever got shown as well in the UK.
There you are. All right. Well, I've got a film that I haven't checked to see if Todd has it on his Forgotten Film Cast. If he hasn't, I hope that he'll choose to do it and ask me to join him to talk about it. We did the Mel Brooks films last week on the Lambcast, or actually 2 weeks ago on the Lambcast, and there were a whole lot of, what would they say, ancestors of the Mel Brooks films in the 1970s, and this is one of them. The last remake of Beau Geste.
Oh, I love the last remake of Beau Geste.
Have you covered it?
Not on the podcast. I reviewed it in the early days of my blog, because that's back when like Netflix would have anything on there, and it was on there. I was like, I remember seeing this sit on the video store shelves, and Always wondered what it was. And so what the heck? I watched it on Netflix and I thought it was wonderful. I was like, why don't more people watch this movie? This is crazy.
Well, it was one of those films that I covered on my original project, the summers of the 70s, and I could not locate it as a video. I had to order it from what was it?
Yeah, it's like the Universal Vault series or something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
where they did a video, they did a disc on demand.
right.
So,
Yeah.
so you would order it and they would burn a disc for you and send it to you. And that's how I got a hold of it. There is now a version that's out. I know there's a Blu-ray that came out, I think 5 or 6 years ago. So it is available. But when I originally reviewed it, it wasn't available. And it's a historical comedy satire of kind of a desert adventure movie. Beau Jest is a famous film from the greatest year of films, 1939, starring Gary Cooper and Robert Preston, and there's a third guy in there. I'm trying to remember who it was. Was it it wasn't Douglas Fairbanks Jr., was it? I don't remember. But it featured a great performance from Brian Donlevy, who had a biting, dastardly line, "I promise you." That was his threat to the soldiers in Beau Jest. And in the last remake of Beau Jest, we have. I don't remember if they're supposed to be twin brothers, and that's the joke that precedes the Arnold Schwarzenegger film Twins, but they are brothers, Marty Feldman and Michael York
Mhm.
as brothers who, for reasons that are part of the story, enlist in the French Foreign Legion to escape England and to cover up their shame. And we've got Anne Margaret in the film. James Earl Jones is in the movie. So he's in a different feature in 1977 than Star Wars. He's in this film, and it's a lot of fun. It's silly, and it's directed by Marty Feldman, who
Yeah.
also co-wrote it. So it's like I said, it has the genesis in all those Mel Brooks movies that were being made in the 70s that we mentioned briefly earlier, and it's kind of in that milieu, and it works really well. The reason I don't think it was a big success is pretty straightforward. It's not a it's not a parody of a genre that people were very familiar with in the 70s. There weren't a lot of desert features, in the time period. Maybe Lawrence of Arabia in the 60s is what something people would think about. But the French Foreign Legion, although there was a film that came out this year, March or Die, with Gene Hackman and what's the guy's name? Terrence Hill, I think. It's a serious film, which also bombed. So maybe the idea of the French Foreign Legion just didn't translate in the 70s. Okay. Well, I guess we're back around again to our last film on everybody's list. Dave Anderson, what's the last film that you've got on your list?
Okay, my last one is even more spectacular and cerebral than Close Encounters, and that's Damnation Alley.
Oh, we did this on the Forgotten Film Cast too.
Those cockroaches, those awful cockroaches.
For me, along with The Swarm, it
Cockroaches.
ranks among the greatest big budget bad movies that was supposed to be good. You just look at the cast: George Peppard, Jan Michael Vincent, Jackie Earle Haley, Paul Winfield, who's actually pretty good in it, and Murray Hamilton in a totally wasted role. The plot is pretty simple. After a nuclear war that knocks the world off its axis, a few survivors try to make their way across America in the one place they believe has not been affected by the war. And they do it in a vehicle called the Landmaster, which is sort of a cross between an RV and a tank. A tank, excuse me. And at one time, Damnation Alley was supposed to be 20th Century Fox's big sci-fi movie that year. And it actually cost more than Star Wars to produce. But it ended up being a cheap-looking flick with, laughable special effects, especially the segments featuring giant scorpions and, of course, those killer
Flaming
cockroaches.
cockroaches.
And it was also severely edited and cut by 45 minutes from its original running time. Apparently, Hamilton's role was much more substantial in the original cut, which has never been seen, by the way. And much of its special effects budget ended up being used for Star Wars, and it shows. And I've never read the novel it's based on, but by all accounts, the movie's apparently a total bastardization of the original story. And this film bombed at the box office. But it's not without its virtues. I think The Landmaster is a pretty cool creation, and I still enjoy watching it just rumble along the desert under these, bizarrely lit skies. And it also gets a big dramatic boost from Jerry Goldsmith's score. I don't think Goldsmith has ever done a bad film score, and this is one of those films where his input really helps the film immeasurably. And even though the special effects are generally laughable, they're also really neat to look at, especially its bizarre depiction of the radioactive skies and the scenes where, the Earth is eventually righting itself back to its original axis. It's not a good film by any stretch, but it really is entertaining.
Yeah, it's got its moments. It's worth a look. I always remember this one because when I was a kid, my next door neighbor, who, it was pretty much a daily ritual. We go outside and play baseball in the street and things like that. But he would always bring up this movie. Have you seen Damnation Alley? Like, no, we haven't seen your cockroach movie yet. Sorry. But
Well, I remember seeing this movie and enjoying it, and I do remember the talk at one point that this was going to be the big film from 20th Century Fox. They had no clue what was coming. But I'll tell you the thing that I remember best about the film, The Landmaster sat in a storage lot in the Cahuenga Pass for 30 years after the movie came out, and I drove by it every time we went to the Hollywood Bowl. It was right there practically on the street. And when it disappeared, I was really surprised. I wondered what had happened. And I think probably the lot had changed hands and somebody got a landmaster somewhere and moved it. But every time I drove by it, I thought, oh yeah, I should check that movie out again. But I never did. So I saw it the one time and that was it. But I did see The Landmaster about 900 times. Todd, whatever, number one.
well, I'm going to stick with animation for my last pick here too. This one, much more conventional, but Disney's The Rescuers, which is a movie I have very fond memories of seeing when I was a kid, in the theater before we had our VCRs and things like that. That was the only place we saw it. And I think I had a record album that I played over and over again of this one. But, this is a weak time for Disney animation. But this, I think, is probably their strongest entry of this time frame. It's a story that kind of just gets into you when you're a kid. It's a story that is somewhat distressing. I was 6 years old when this came out, and it deals with a little girl who is kidnapped, and these mice have to go save her. And the kid gets wrapped up in this whole thing where she's, the villain has her going down into this like blowhole to find a diamond and things like that. It's a very like tense and distressing scene for a kid, watching her down there and the water is rising and all that kind of stuff. This film has probably one of my favorite Disney animated villains in Madame Medusa, with Geraldine Page doing a fantastic vocal performance here. You've got several great voices. Bob Newhart and Ava Gabor are the leads. You've got Joe Flynn as Snoops, who's the villain's main sidekick. A bunch of great characters. I love the kind of gang of country bumpkins that help out the heroes, especially the dragonfly Evinrude, which I always remember when I was much older and realized where that name came from. I was like, oh, okay, the dragonfly that serves as a motor to a boat is called Evinrude. Clever. Okay, that's fun. But a lot of fun, colorful characters in it. great adventure element to this one. Just a good mix of sweet stuff and scary stuff for kids. It's not a Disney musical; it's a Disney adventure tale, and this is one that just has always stuck with me. In terms of Disney animation in the '70s, this is I think the best that they did.
Yeah, I do think that this is a good illustration of, how the Disney animation features had kind of reached a certain plateau of achievement, and they weren't stretching the boundaries of animation. They weren't doing anything that was challenging and innovative. It was a good film. It was a nice story. The characters are good, but the look of the film is not something that is particularly memorable, except, like you said, for a couple of the characters and the way they're drawn. Uh, as I recall, like the background images just are kind of flat and uninteresting, and that shouldn't be that way. But the voice casting was terrific, and it did actually get an animated sequel, which I think is also
Mhm.
quite good.
Yeah.
So, Howard, if Close Encounters wasn't the best film of 1977, whatever you've got in the number one spot's going to be pretty spectacular.
Well,
Exorcist
I'm
2: The Heretic.
wondering if people can guess. Huh?
Exorcist 2: The Heretic, right? That's your top one.
No. Oh, come on. It's Annie Hall.
Annie Hall.
I
Well,
knew it. Yeah.
Annie Hall, Exorcist, they're kind of the same movie. No, Annie Hall is not only the
Yeah.
best film of 1977, it's one of the greatest films ever made. It revolutionized romantic comedy. Before this, romantic comedy was based on the alpha male and the alpha female finding each other. But this totally changed everything. And we now have the neurotic male and the neurotic female finding each other. It had an unhappy ending, which was, I'm not sure you could say it's the first for a romantic comedy, but that also changed things. One of Diane Keaton's greatest performances. She won the Oscar that year, and it's an absolutely brilliant, brilliant script.
I do love the cocaine scene.
I was gonna say the cocaine gag is maybe one of the single best gags in movie history.
Although the look on Alan's face when Christopher Walken is driving him to the airport,
Yeah.
pretty
Sometimes I
effective
just
too.
want to pull the car over into the other lane.
Well, Annie Hall is a terrific film, and it benefited a lot in its Academy Award campaign from being on a local pay-per-view channel in the Los Angeles area. Um, what was the name of that? Gosh darn it.
Is that like, oh, I've seen, there's a documentary. Is it
Yeah,
the Z Network or
that's
something
it.
like that?
The Z
Yeah.
channel. The
Z
Z
Channel.
channel.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it actually ends up being in the top 10 box office for the year, but I think most of that occurred later in its run. It originally wasn't that successful, but when it got a lot of critical attention, I think it probably picked up a lot of business, and that's exactly one of the reasons people do the campaigning, to bring attention to a film that they think should be doing better business, and it did. Well, David, what have you got in your last spot here?
Right, I've gone serious. I've gone serious to my final pick, and I've gone to the Soviet Union. And yeah, I'm going to talk about The Ascent. So this is by Larisa Shepitko. So yeah, she's a director who she was a kind of a film school contemporary of people like Andrei Tarkovsky and Sergei Paranov, Paranov, sorry, and but she tragically died at The Ascent. She'd made a few films before The Ascent, but The Ascent was kind of her breakthrough. It won the Golden Bear at the Berlin Film Festival. But tragically, before she could finish her next film, her and some crew members died in a car accident. So it's quite tragic. But she did leave us with, well, several films. But as I say, The Ascent is her most famous one. It's set in World War II during the kind of a freezing winter. And it focuses on two Soviet partisans who at the start, they get sent on a seemingly simple mission just to gather some food to contend with the temperature and bring back to their the rest of their team. But yeah, they get into all sorts of trouble, and eventually they do actually get captured by the Germans, and they kind of desperately trying to survive. So yeah, it's a very kind of intimate. It's not. It sounds like a war movie, but it's not one of these kind of big explosive kind of war movies. It's very intimate. It's very much internalized on these characters and their kind of psyche. It's not a fun movie. Russian cinema at the time isn't known for being kind of particularly cheery. But at the same time, often when you think of films like, especially Tarkovsky's films and things like this, you think of films that are quite slow and ponderous. But this, although it's tough and it's challenging, it's one that really grabs you and doesn't let you go. It is very compelling. It's not just a kind of a moody kind of slog, for want of a better word. It's really beautifully directed. It kind of mixes. You've got some kind of handheld camera work for some of the more intense kind of situations that they're in, but also it's got some really carefully composed, beautifully lit shots. It uses close-ups a lot to kind of emphasize this kind of intimacy that I was talking about before. And it's just a stunningly made film. As I say, not a barrel of laughs, but it's really is a stunning kind of film. Kind of mixes. There's bits of spirituality in there and a bit of kind of visual poetry without wanting to sound wanky, but it's a really amazing piece of filmmaking. And it's as I say, it's tragic that she Larissa Shepitko didn't have any chance to make any more films. Really, that's the only one of the films I've seen. Actually, I think he can. She did another one called Wings that is easy. Not that I think Criterion released that, but I haven't had a chance to get around to watching it. So yeah.
It would have been on my list, except that I don't think it was released in the U.S.
Oh, okay. Oh, I've just gone with
1977, except at film festival.
Oh, cool. I've just gone with like I think letterboxed years. I didn't know when it was released there, but yeah.
Yeah. No, it's an incredible film. It almost didn't get released because the Soviets considered it an attack on the show trials of the Soviet Union. But she had a friend in the film industry that did allow it to get distributed. But it would definitely have been on mine if it had come up as a 1977 release, because it is. Yes, the other film, I think Wings, you said it was, is okay. It doesn't really. Yeah. There's nothing that great.
Okay.
All right. Well, I don't speak Russian, so I'd have to have a translator show up for me in the movie. It sounds like an interesting film, but like you said, not exactly sit down with your popcorn and enjoy the evening film.
No.
I, on the other hand, am finishing my list with a film that fits exactly into that category. There's no reason to remember it. It's not particularly good. I lied. There is one reason to remember it, and that's the reason it's on the list. And the reason to remember it is Ray Harryhausen. I'm talking about Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger, which is, the third of the Sinbad films that got made in the 70s. I literally have a hard time remembering what the plot involved. Patrick Wayne is the star he plays Sinbad. I don't remember him being bad, but I don't remember him being particularly good or compelling either. But the film is filled with a lot of these Ray Harryhausen creations that make it interesting. There's like a mechanical minotaur and a giant baboon, and there's not a cyclops, but like a gargoyle type creature. And that's mostly why I remember seeing the film, because I went to see the stop motion animation. I love that kind of stuff. I would be happy if they did more movies that way instead and skip the CGI kind of stuff. Give me, the Phil Tippett Ed 209, the Tauntaun in Empire Strikes Back. I'm all for those kinds of stop motion special effects, and that's the main reason that anybody is going to remember it.
I think there's another reason too. If you're
Oh
of a
yes,
certain age, Jane
that's right.
Seymour and Taryn Power.
Yes, both beautiful women, and I believe there is a sunbathing scene in the film.
Yeah. there are a couple of things about this one that I remember being like, oh yeah, this was marketed to kids. Okay, so a bit of skin in this one.
Yeah, I always, I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I have a really, really really kind of big soft spot for the Ray Harryhausen films. I always think of those as being the earliest kind of films I remember kind of really falling in love with. From my memory, I think those and James Bond films are the kind of films that were always on TV when I was a kid, and I always would watch them if they were on. And so I adore all of the kind of Sinbad movies and Jason the Argonauts and things like that. They're always going to be kind of firm nostalgic favorites to me. And I adore stop motion for the same reason, because I just grew up on it. So yes, I'm totally with you on this one.
Good, I'm glad. Well, that's our list, folks. You get a chance to see 1977 from the perspective of 49 years later. Hope that you've enjoyed looking back at some of the films. And of course, we will be talking about Star Wars next year on a special program for the Lambcast. But for now, we're going to take a quick break to hear from a fellow Lamb Podcasting Network show, and then we'll be back with our exit question of the week.
Hello, I am Aaron Newworth. I am a film critic and the editor-in-chief at We Live Entertainment. I host the podcast Out Now with Aaron and Abe, and I am a big Godzilla fan.
Hi, my name is Terrence Johnson. I am a film critic as well at lenoirauteur.net, and I have seen some Godzilla movies.
And together, we've decided we're starting a podcast called Two Black Guys Talk Godzilla. It's going to be a bi-weekly podcast, as in twice a month.
Yes.
Where Terrence and I will go over the entire Godzilla franchise.
Yeah. This is what do they call these things? Labors of love.
Yeah, exactly.
Labors of love.
We're back, and the exit question of the week is, let's face it, we're in the Wayback Machine, looking at the 1970s, and it just occurred to me that one of the things I enjoy talking about are the films of the 70s. So let me see what other people think about them. The question is, which year in the 1970s is your favorite for movies? I have an easy answer for this one, and I think Todd probably already knows what it is, but let's find out what everybody else's is first. Howard, what's your favorite year for films in the 1970s?
I don't understand why there's any question about this one, but I guess there is. It's 1974. You have the triumvirate at the top of Godfather Part 2, Chinatown, The Conversation. Then you have the two Mel Brooks films, Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein. And then you have all sorts of other films, like A Woman Under the Influence, Murder on the Orient Express, and I could go on. Some lesser known ones like Uptown Saturday Night. It also has Taking Pelham 1, 2, 3, Paradise, Four Musketeers. So I just don't understand what other year could possibly compete with that.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre is that year
Yes.
too.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The Hills Have Eyes. Oh no, that's 77.
Nice.
No, 77 was Hills Have Eyes. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I don't disagree with you. I think the 70s are full of years that have fantastic collections of films, and 74 was a great one. When I was in high school, I wrote an article for the paper about the best films of 1974 and the Academy Awards that were going on that year, and it was a terrific combination of, blockbuster films, artistic accomplishments and achievements, and things that just were cool. So I don't disagree that 74 is a great year for movies. I just happen to have a slightly different preference. But we'll get to that in a second. Dave Anderson. Dave Anderson, what's your favorite year of films in 1970s?
Well, Jaws is my favorite film, but my favorite year would have to be 1974, just like Howard. In addition to the films that he mentioned, you got The Parallax View, The Longest Yard, The Towering Inferno, Death Wish, and a plethora of other disaster films. Lenny with Dustin Hoffman. So overall, yeah, definitely 74.
And that's another, like I said, it's a great year for movies and artistic accomplishments especially. So, Todd, where are you going?
I've been going back and forth all morning because I keep on looking at things going, maybe this, maybe this. Um, I mean, I think all the arguments being made for 1974 are definitely valid, and later this week I might actually say 74. I was toying a lot with 78. There's some ones that in 78 that are really important movies to me, but I think where I ended up settling is on my birth year, 71. There's just some that jump out at me there, and my list is not coming up all of a sudden. I've made the foolish mistake of clicking away from it for a second. But like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is one that jumps out at me. Um, Oh, geez. I'm sorry, guys. My list has just totally gone away. There it is. Harold and Maude, Dirty Harry, Clockwork Orange, the McCabe and Mrs. Miller, Bananas, even Escape from the Planet of the Apes. So yeah. Right now, I'm gonna go with 71, but on any given day, I could shift. Every year, the 70s has some things that I gravitate towards. So
I know exactly how you feel. I was thinking about 1971. I did remember that we did a decade call back to 1971. I'd forgotten that we'd done 1978, but I did remember 1971, and it has a terrific list of films to it. So, like I said, I had this discussion online a few years ago. Um, on one of the websites I went to, he asked everybody to make an argument for what they thought the best decade of films was. And of course, I was there and defending the 1970s. And I just, like Howard doesn't think there's any dispute that 1974 is the best. I certainly don't think there's any dispute that the 1970s were the best. So the whole decade.
Yes.
But we're going to have a mild dispute here. Not a major one because, like I said, I think most of the years there were pretty damn solid if you look at the list of films that are available there. Uh, David Brook, how about you? What's your 1970s choice?
Well, now people keep bringing up 74. I almost want to change my mind, but no, I took a scientific route. I went on Letterboxd and kind of looked at what films I'd given 5 stars and 4.5 stars and kind of tallied them up. But I realized this is quite flawed because Letterboxd has only been around for 14 years, and I've only really logged stuff I've seen since then. So anything I've watched a while ago is not on the list. So this is a deeply flawed scientific method.
But it is data driven.
Yeah, but I went with 1978 because that just had the most kind of 5 stars and just most in general. So yeah, I mean the films I've got list here, Halloween, and Autumn Sonata. I've got The Driver, which is one of my all-time favorites. Dawn of the Dead, The Last Waltz, Drunken Master, another one of my favorites. Snake in the Eagle Shadow, The Fall of Akko Castle, Girlfriends, the Deer Hunter. Tree of Wood and Clogs, and National Lampoon's Animal House, and Grease, which I quite enjoy. I'm not usually a big musical guy, but I do enjoy Grease. So yeah, there was a lot in there. So I went with 1978. But as you say, the 1970s in general. Oh, Superman, yes.
Superman is the one for me.
I'm not the biggest Superman guy, but I do enjoy it. It's yeah.
I'm seeing Grease on the big screen today.
Oh,
Nice.
wow.
So it's a good choice. And again, we did 1978. That was originally what this show was going to be before we finally realized. Thank you, Todd, for reminding me, what the hell was going on there. I can't fault any of the years that people are citing. As I said before, the 1970s, I think, are the apex of filmmaking from my perspective. But my answer, of course, is going to be slightly different than everybody. So I'm the iconoclast here, and I'm going to go with 1975. 1975 obviously has one of the greatest films of all time, Jaws, at the center of it, and it has One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Shampoo, Dog Day Afternoon, 3 Days of the Condor. From my perspective, the Rocky Horror Picture Show deserves to be on that list, having seen it
The Man Who Would Be King.
hundreds of times. But we get The Man Who Would Be King and The Wind and the Lion.
Yeah.
Sean Connery playing an Englishman and a Barbary Pirate in two different films, and they're both terrific movies. I love those films. But in addition to the great films of 1975, there are just a ton of second tier films that are really good. Uh, the Stepford Wives, The Great Waldo Pepper, um, the Yakuza,
Oh
uh,
yeah, I love that.
Capone, which is a terrific little gangster film with Ben Gazzara, and you get oh, my favorite comedy of all time is 1975, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I
Oh,
laughed my ass off at
wow.
that film, and I laugh at it every time I see it. It's a terrific movie, and it's so funny and it's so memorable. So, like I said, it's not like I have anything against other years, but there are a lot of great second tier films here. The Iger Sanction, WW and the Dixie Dance Kings. Uh, you know,
I know
uh,
you're not as big on Nashville, Richard, but Nashville is that
I'm
year.
I was
yeah,
going to mention I
Nashville is
love
that year. I
that.
I
And
can't stand Nashville.
and we've mentioned Woody Allen several times, but one of my favorites of his and underappreciated today, Love and Death, is 75.
Very funny film.
Yeah.
Very funny film.
Funnily enough, with my scientific method, I hate to say it, but it was the lowest year by quite a while for me.
Wow.
But I think, I don't know, again, it's a flawed method. There's probably films that I haven't logged on there that I do love. I do have a few favorites. I'd say Jaws as well up there. I adore that film. There's a
Do
couple
you
of
have
good
Bite the Bullet logged?
Yeah, there's a couple of good martial arts movies as well. The Valiant ones, I love that. It's one of King Hu's best. And I've got a real soft spot for The Man from Hong Kong, which I just
yeah.
yeah, Australian
George
excited
Lazenby's
Hong
in
Kong.
that one.
Yeah, I love that film. It's so much fun.
Well, and somebody mentioned the Charles Bronson Death Wish in the 1974 list. In 1975, Charles Bronson had Breakout and Hard Times, which was his best performance on screen.
Hard
He's
times.
terrific in that movie. And by the way, Robert Tessier, who I mentioned earlier, is in that film.
Nice.
Wasn't Break Cart Pass also 75?
Yes.
Yeah,
and
there
that
you go.
that had Bronson and Tessier in it.
Yes, it did, and so if you're a Bronson fan, which I am, 75 just seems like a natural for you. There are a lot of terrific movies that came out that year. And like I said, not just the top tier films, but second tier films. And I'm sure that Todd's got a dozen forgotten films from 1975 that he wants to cover at some point or other. And anytime he wants to do a 1970s film, he knows he should be asking me because I'm happy to talk about it.
My
I'll be
go-to
happy to talk about it.
70s guys are on this show. Dave Anderson, Richard Kirkham,
There we go. All the good stuff. Well, we're going to finish up here quickly. I want to give everybody a chance to suggest things to read, look at, listen to, watch, whatever it is they're working on now. David Brook, I know that you're kind of taking a break because you're working on a book. Is there anything that goes along with the book that maybe we could catch up on?
Yeah, well, I say the book won't be. I'm halfway through writing it, but it won't be out for a while. But I've snuck in a couple of sneaky reviews on my website at blueprintreview.co.uk, and I have a team of writers, so there's always stuff going on at the website. But I did do a sneaky review of Executive Target, which is on the surface a very cheesy kind of action movie, but it's got some awesome car chases in it. But yeah, there's stuff from other writers that's well worth looking at. We've just got an interview with a guy who wrote a book on Hitchcock, which is worth checking out. But
yeah. Dave Anderson, how about something that you might want people to turn their eyes to?
Well, once again, I'm just keeping physical media alive. I've got upcoming 4K reviews of Mars Attacks. I think it's its 30th anniversary edition. And what I'm really excited for is the original Star Trek series in 4K that's coming out soon.
Well, that'll be fun. That'll be fun. Is that going to include the one with updated visual effects?
I'm really hoping not. I won't know until it arrives, but
hopefully they give you the option.
Yeah, it's coming as a pretty elaborate box set.
Howard, I know that you've got a new project going and you're not very deep into it yet, but we should mention it for sure.
Oh yeah, it's the Stumble Bum podcast, which covers films that I stumbled over, I'd never heard about before. So and I have a guest on to talk about it. So the first one was American Murder, and the next one will be with Richard. And I guess you want to do None Shall Escape, a 1940s World War II film
Yeah,
that takes
and
place after World War II.
and Todd, I know you've got a new project going, and I want to give you a chance to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the Forgotten Film Cast, I did finally get a new episode of that up this week. So we're slowly coming back with that. That episode we're talking about the final animated feature from the Fleischer Studios, Mr. Bug Goes to Town. So check that out. But yeah, my new podcast, which is called Cartoon Breakdown, just launched at the beginning of July. And the first 2 episodes are up right now. Our next episode will be hitting this week on Wednesday. And we are looking at one of the most important animated films ever made, Disney's Three Little Pigs. And then we are also digging into its several sequels. So that is our next episode.
Nice.
Very good. I've been listening to the episodes, and I'm very much enjoying them. So you're doing a great job there. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
On my site, as usual, I'm doing the best I can to keep up, which means that I'm not keeping up because I can't. I have 6 films that I have to write posts on that I haven't done. One of them dating back to mid-June, so I have really fallen behind. The Death of Robin Hood is a film that I saw back in the middle of June that I haven't written about yet, and I want to get to it. And I've got 5 other films that I have to catch up on. And of course, I've got 2 that I'm going to be seeing this afternoon, evening. So I'm going to have to work on that as well. This is the problem with traveling. I know when you're traveling, it's hard to do those kinds of things, and I just fell behind. I'm going to catch up. I'm behind on 2 of the illustrated podcasts. One of them I'm going to be posting abbreviated version of. We had Bob Lefembure as a movie of the month last month, and I thought the show was great. We had a good time. Dave and Howard were on that show, but I hadn't had a chance to do the visual podcast, and basically I cheated on it. So when you see it, if any of you look at it, you'll notice that it's not as detailed and intricate as it might have been. That's because if I didn't cheat on it, it was never going to get done. So but there'll be something up for that, and I still have the Odyssey to catch up on. And of course, this show is going to be a challenge. Looking forward to talking about it and working on it for the next week. Hopefully, I don't stay up until midnight 4 nights a week trying to get this done. But I've imposed these rules on myself, not anybody else. So I have only myself to blame. I want to thank everybody for joining me this week. This has always been a great feature show. I love the Decade Look Back, so I'm glad that we're happy to have so many people join us. And we'll catch you sometime in the past next time on the Lambcast. Thanks, everybody.
You've been listening to the Lambcast. If you have an idea for a show or would like to join us on the Lambcast, contact us at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Find us on Facebook, just search for Lambcast, or on X, formerly Twitter, at Lambcast. And you can find us on YouTube as well. The Lamb site can be found at largeassmovieblogs.com. We'd also love it if you would leave a review on iTunes.
Ha 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 ha